This is Ash Gravity, and I'm a queer witch, an astrologer, and a flower essence creator coming to you with the weekly astrology forecast for January 18th to 24th. If you have been following my channel for a while, then you know I have been doing monthly solar season forecasts for about the last 6 months. And I've noticed over the last few that I've done that I'm always cutting out a ton of information that I want to share with you. Sometimes my videos end up being like 30 minutes long, and YouTube only allows me to post 15 minutes at a time. So I decided to go ahead and just switch to weekly so that I can share more content with you in 2021. And we're going to go ahead and get started with that here at the beginning of Aquarius season. Right here at the beginning of the video, I always like to take a little bit of my Speak with Confidence Flower Essence blend. And this is a blend that I created to just help me speak well and not get tongue-tied and tongue-twisted over my words, embody my calm, channeled self in these moments. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit of that. If you've never heard of flower essences before and you want to know more about like what is this thing that I'm taking, I actually have a video on my channel. And if you're interested in learning more about that, there's tons more info on my website at ashgravity.com. You can also subscribe below this video to make sure you get updates every week when I post the new video. And if you are more traditional, you want to get an email, you can subscribe to my weekly email newsletter where I send the link to this video, my podcast where I sometimes go a little bit more extended, and also to the transcripts that I post up on my blog, as well as other content. I am a consulting astrologer, so if you ever want to get a reading or consultation, or you want to get a custom flower essence blend inspired by and to help you move through your own personal astrology, you can find all that info also at ashgravity.com. And you can also find me over on Instagram at ashgravity. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and get into it. This is a week of many messages and insights, and it's important to know right at the outset that on January 30th, Mercury is going to station retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. So this week we're going to have a lot of action. We're going to have more action based on the events that we had here in the United States last week. And so it's important to remember that Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde. So some of the things that we are witnessing and moving through during this period of time, we're going to be revisiting and reviewing over the next couple of months. In addition to some of the more current events or political happenings, and obviously I'm speaking of the insurrection that happened at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. last week. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in this video. But on a personal level, some of the messages that you're receiving over the course of this week might have more to do with what you feel your calling or your purpose is. Right now, we have a square between Mars and Uranus in Taurus and Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, and the asteroid Pallas Athene in Aquarius. Now, these are both fixed signs, and this square is going to be continuing throughout 2021. Fixed signs have an energy that is somewhat stationary. They don't necessarily like to move or change their mind all that much. And I think we know that this conflict that we're experiencing has some of those qualities of not wanting to change, not wanting things to be different. And there's complex feelings that are coming up on the political level, but also we internally might be caught up in some of those feelings too of, I really was hoping that this year we were going to be moving out of some of that stuff. And it's more apparent as the days go on that some of this is just the way things are now. And we're learning and figuring out how to deal with that and exist with that over the course of the year ahead. So at the beginning of the week on Monday, the sun is at the final degree of Capricorn, the 29th degree. And this could be giving us that feeling of like, I just need to get things done. I just need to get things done. Capricorn is very ambition focused, very, wanting to achieve things kind of focused. And when we're in that final degree, it can just make that energy even more intense. One of the things that I think is really interesting about this is that the Centaur Shiroklo is in conjunction with the sun in Capricorn on this day as it's moving through the very last part of Capricorn season. And the moon is moving into the first quarter phase in the first 2 days of this week, and it's in the sign of Aries. And who is right there with the moon in Aries but the Centaur that is probably more well known to everyone, Chiron. So the symbolism or the story behind these two centaurs is that Shiroklo is actually Chiron's wife. What they bring up is conversations around healing and witnessing somebody else's pain and somebody else's healing experience. And last week there were so many conversations that I saw coming up, calls for unity and for healing in the political world, in our country here in the United States. I think we're going to see more of that come up this week around what does healing actually mean? Because healing isn't just a destination that we get to. We don't just get to unity. It requires actual work. And so I think some of those feelings and learning about more about that is going to be what we have our focus and attention on at the beginning of this week. Then on Tuesday at 2:39 p.m. Central Time, the sun will enter into Aquarius, officially kicking off Aquarius season. And this is always a time of year where being different and being opinionated and feeling strong in what you have learned is brought into focus. The sun will be moving into a conjunction with Saturn, Jupiter, and Mercury, and also the asteroid Pallas Athene at this time. And I think that the addition of Pallas Athene is an interesting one because it's really about having a plan of attack and, to a certain extent, waging war. And so some of those feelings and that feeling of needing to come up with a plan of attack because of conflict could be coming up in the first couple of days of this week. On a more personal level, I think that some of the energy we might feel on Tuesday is that reaction to Capricorn season, where at the beginning of the calendar year, so often we can feel like, okay, this year is going to be different and I'm going to do all of these things. And if you did get caught up into any of those ways of thinking at the beginning of the year, this is a time when you might kind of react to it and be like, okay, the structure that I had set out or the goals that I had set for myself, I need to maybe rethink them a little bit because obviously things aren't going to be changing that much moving forward. So those are some of the things that, like, on a personal level we might be feeling. And this could make us feel inadequate too. The first couple days of this week, we could definitely be hard on ourselves in that we're like not measuring up to our expectations. So be aware of that. Because there will be probably a lot of pressure to take action at this point in time. And as always, I think many of us are struggling with wanting to have a break in our routine, wanting to have something different, but the like unexpected changes that are coming up aren't necessarily all things that we are wanting. So there's a little bit of a duality there. On Wednesday, the moon will enter into Taurus, and then Joe Biden, who his inauguration is scheduled for this day, and I'm recording this on Friday, January 15th, and already we're hearing stories about how they are making adjustments to the typical inauguration process just because there's so much security concern about Joe Biden. And interestingly, his own moon is in Taurus, which, as I mentioned, that's where the moon is going to be on Wednesday. And it's in the very early degrees of Taurus, like at 0 some seconds. And so he's right in the middle of this conflict between Taurus and Aquarius. And so there's this stubborn push for change and no change, kind of all happening at the same time, expansion and contraction, and feelings about traditional values and, well, what's the better way to move forward? And even within the groups of people who are thinking more about the future and like what's best for the collective and humanity, there's still conflicts and disagreements and we can't all get on the same page. So Joe Biden's right in the middle of all of this. And everybody's got something to say. Nobody really wants to listen to anybody else. And there is this feeling, maybe that on Wednesday, there's some kind of escape that needs to happen. And I do think maybe some of that is coming from that Joe Biden is probably in a pretty dangerous situation at this moment in time. There's a lot of obviously angry, frustrated people who don't want him to enter into office. And there's so much more that I could say about all of that. But basically on Wednesday, we're going to be having some of those tensions that we had in the previous week come up once again. And there's also a little bit of an echo happening at this point in time from when Saturn and Jupiter entered into Aquarius around December 14th, and also back when they were in Saturn was in Aquarius in the spring of 2020. By the end of the week, we're moving forward. We're learning how to respond to and channel with and work with all of the ideas that are coming through. And we're also trying to figure out how to take some time for ourselves and take some personal reflection time and just personal space while also keeping up with all of the news that's coming out over the course of this week. And like I said, the story will not be complete at the end of this week. We're going to be returning to and reflecting on reviewing some of the information we received this week in the coming weeks as Mercury is retrograde. On Saturday, you could be feeling like pressure to kind of make up for any lost time that you might have felt like you had over the course of the week, getting caught up with everything that you were receiving, all the messages that you were receiving. And there could also be a little bit of a feeling on Saturday of conflict once again, things that happened on Wednesday kind of coming back around on Saturday and just feeling like survival response kind of mode on Saturday. Also on Saturday, the moon will have moved into Gemini, which is where the North Node has been since May. And this is about the direction that we're all moving in. I've written on my blog last year about the North Node in Gemini, bringing up themes around nationalism versus globalism, or differences between people of different backgrounds and also different walks of life, you could say. And so some of those themes have been coming up while the North Node has been in Gemini, and over the course of the weekend, they could also be brought into some focus once again. On Saturday, the Sun and Saturn will also be in conjunction with each other, the energy of a job well done, or a job complete, maybe you could say, crisis averted, or something has been avoided that could be coming up at this moment in time. So by Sunday, obviously, I think most of us are going to be pretty tired and need that really internal, calm space. And so make sure that you are setting yourself up to take that time over the course of the weekend, because your nervous system is probably going to need it. We're obviously responding to a lot of major historic events as a collective right now, and it's necessary completely for you to take the space that you need to be able to keep up with what's going on. There's also going to be a sextile, which is lovely, between Venus and Neptune towards the end of this week. And this can be kind of more of a dreamy space, an imaginative space, a working with our inspiration kind of space. And so definitely try to take advantage of some of that energy. I still can't get all of the information I want to share with you into one 15-minute video. It's so hard with so much astrology going on right now. And I am starting in 2021 a monthly group for people who are interested in astrology, interested in learning more about the language of astrology and how they can use it for themselves in their own life. And our first meeting is this Thursday night over Zoom on January 21st in the evening. So if you want to learn more about that, there's details below this this video. And otherwise, I'd love to see you on my email newsletter, connect with me on Instagram, or just subscribe to this video, and I'll see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a great week.